Brand for branding. Yes. All right, testing 1, 2, 3. It's working. Welcome everyone to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. My name is Tracy Ivanovich, and I'm pleased and honored to serve as your president. So our thought for the day comes from Michelle Obama. One of the lessons that I grew up with was always stay true to yourself and never let what somebody else says distract you from your goals. And so when I hear about negative and false attacks, I really don't invest any energy in them because I know who I am. And I thought that was a very appropriate thought for the day, given the events for tonight. So from a reflection standpoint, Bill Brown, would you come up and give a reflection?
Thank you, President Tracy. Hello to all in the room and online. I had the opportunity to go to a conference in Bentonville, Arkansas, and my administrative assistant said, would you like for me to handle your flight arrangements? I said, no, I can take care of that myself. Then I'll get exactly what I want. And on a previous trip to Bentonville, I had remembered that the airport was closer to Fayetteville than to Bentonville. So with multiple screens open, I decided to book my trip, and I was looking and I looked at IND to FAY. And the first thing that came up was 12:15 to 3:47 PM. I was like, that's almost too good to be true. And it goes through Charlotte for some reason. And I reasoned that, well, Charlotte is a major hub for American Airlines. And then I looked, the flight from Charlotte to Fayetteville was just over an hour. I thought, that's interesting. But then I realized, oh, there's a time change. So that makes sense. But when I got to the airport, it was obvious that we were in post-pandemic travel mode, and it was very crowded. The flight from IND to CLT ran late. When I got to the airport in Charlotte, I had 10 minutes to get from Concourse A to Concourse E, and a digital sign said 10 minutes was the walking time between those two terminals. So I took my suitcase, dragged that roller bag as fast as I could through a crowd of people, half heading in my direction, half heading in the other direction. And I was ricocheting off of other people that seemed to be in the same shape I was in. And when I got there, there was no boarding line. And I wondered, had it already taken off? And the ticket agent said, well, nope, you're the last one on, but we're going to have to check your bag. It's a crowded flight. My fellow passengers, of course, gave me laser eyes, and apparently I'd held up the plane, and I put my phone on flight mode, sat down, still huffing and puffing and sweating, and I thought, well, I made it. Perhaps this would be a good time for a nap. The pseudo-friendly flight attendant came on the intercom and said, welcome to flight 5836 to Fayetteville. Flying time is 20 minutes. My recovering heart fell to the floor with a sudden realization. Of course, there is a Fayetteville, North Carolina also. That was where I was headed, 1,000 miles away from where I was supposed to be. And I remembered in that instant that the call sign for the airport I was supposed to go to was XNA. It's Arkansas Regional Airport. So suddenly my heart was pounding at full speed again. I had the urge to get up and demand to return to the gate that we were backing away from, realizing my luggage was now in the hold. Plane full of people who already viewed me with some disdain. I could hear Jim McKay's voice saying, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, as I tumbled off of the ramp in a cloud of snow and skis. I grabbed my phone and released it from flight mode. Perhaps they would throw me off the plane and I could get a flight. I searched for flights from FAY to XNA, no luck. FAY apparently is no hub. And my speed in getting to this flight actually worked against me because I now was going to find myself in a place where there were no flights to anywhere. So for 20 minutes, I immersed myself in a cesspool of my own embarrassment. What would I tell my colleagues when I returned? How does one explain that you flew to the wrong city? Who does that? My only hope was to find a ticket agent who could help me get back to the right Fayetteville in time for the conference. The first agent I found was at the head of a growing line of frustrated travelers. She rolled her eyes at me and handed me off to Frank, who was a man about my age. And Frank kindly noted that I was the second traveler from IND that week who had come to the wrong Fayetteville. As he stared at his computer terminal, feverishly typing, he kept shaking his head as the line grew behind me. Finally, he came up with a circuitous route to the conference, which would arrive at 6 p.m. the next day, just after the final reception. How about if we try to get you back to Indianapolis so you can work tomorrow? And I said, fine, go for it. So after surfing and typing some more, he came up with a plan to get me back to Indianapolis after midnight. And unfortunately, his plan required me to get to Raleigh-Durham Airport, 78 miles away, within 2 hours. Not knowing how I would do that, I accepted his plan and grabbed the tickets. Off to the next challenge, to the rental counter. And an energetic desk clerk with a new trainee looked at me and he said, "Let me check with my manager." So they went in the back office. I started thinking, do I need to bolt to another desk or get an Uber? Finally, they came back and they said, "We have the last car on the lot and it's fully fueled and ready to go. Be sure to give us a 5-star review." I didn't inquire as to what kind of vehicle it was. I signed the paperwork. It really was the last car on the lot. It was a Kia Niro. When I pushed the start button, I realized it was an EV. Finally, I get to drive an EV. I had been trying to find one on car lots in Bloomington for months. So finally, a small ray of sunshine on this very overcast trip peeked through, and I had a reason to smile for the first time that day. So I had a zippy journey to RDU, enjoying all the modern safety technology of a new car. I made my flights and returned to work with a tall tale and nothing on my schedule. At lunch, on a whim, I decided to go visit the local Kia dealer and see if they had a Kia Niro EV. There was an IU Crimson EV parked out in front of the dealership. The salesman asked if I wanted a test drive. I said no. I said, "How much will you give me for my 10-year-old Prius?" My wife was surprised when I came home with a new car that day. I call my new ride Faye. About a week after the flight to the wrong Fayetteville, Faye and I were sitting at a stoplight waiting to cross 4-lane Highway 45 bypass. There was a van to my left, and I couldn't see oncoming traffic from the east. When the light turned green, I stepped on the accelerator to feel that whoosh of EV torque. And all I got was a warning buzzer, and I was dead stop right there. As soon as I looked up from the dashboard, a blur of a speeding car went by who had long run the red stoplight in his direction and probably going 60 miles an hour. My Faye saw that car coming. My old Prius would not have seen that car coming. If I had pulled out into the intersection, I probably would not be here talking to you today. So mistakes can be tickets to places we did not intend to go. Mistakes can be places that provide new perspectives, places that in hindsight were maybe where we were always meant to be. Mistakes lead us on a winding path to where we are and who we are. Mistakes help us get to our final destination, even when those destinations come as a complete surprise. Thank you.
That was excellent reflection. And yes, Northwest Regional Airport, know it well. But we're very thankful that you did buy Faye because we're glad to have you here today. Winston, could you come up and introduce the guests, please? Sorry, past President-elect Winston Schindel.
Okay, we have 4 guests today, so when I call your name, would you please would rise and so we can recognize you. And it's my pleasure to introduce a guest of Jim Bright, Sage Jaffe. And Aaron Parks, also a guest of Jim. Ruth Boschkoff's guest, Elizabeth Hegedus. And from Road Act, June Wong. So do we have any guests online, Joy?
You're muted. Joy, you're on.
Joy, you're on mute.
Joy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, we do have one guest joining us. We have Jim Mahdi who is a guest of Jeff Richardson, who should be in the room there. So
He
that's,
is.
that's
Okay.
we have. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. What's wrong?
Yeah, that's mine.
That's yours. This is mine.
You're always taking my stuff. See how that works? So anyway, all right. So for birthdays, we have several this week. Alon Barker and Wendell St. John share this 12th. Happy birthday. And John Weikart on the 8th. And then anniversaries, there are none. And for announcements, yes, toast tickets. Get your toast tickets while the getting's good. And then secondly, the committee leads all met last Thursday at our home, and we have a good game plan to get our committees active and supercharged. So be on the lookout for communications from your respective committee leads and join in as you can. We also have a sub-team that will be reviewing and making a recommendation on how we count and track our service hours as a club to ensure that we're more accurately reflecting all that we do and foster more inclusion. And we are really looking for all members, especially new, to jump in. And I'm going to give a special shout out to Dakir, as he is always a willing participant and representative of our club aspirations. So with that, a couple of quick other announcements. We did the drawing for next quarter because I'm going to be out of town the next 2 weeks. So the past president Ron drew, and next quarter we will be supporting the Bloomington Refugee Support, which I believe Dave Meyer had submitted. And then you may notice Natalie is being very proactive here. So on your tables, we've got lunch buddies. You can start them early if you like, or you can wait till the next quarter, whatever works for you. And with that, let's see, I think we will have Sally Goskell come up and introduce our program.
Thank you, President Tracy. What? Okay. It is my pleasure today to introduce you all to Chad Rabinovitz, if you don't know him. Chad has been making theater in Bloomington since 2009, when he arrived in town to become the producing artistic director of Bloomington Playwrights Project. 15 years later, in 2022, the BPP merged with Cardinal Stage and the Pegasus Institute to become Constellation Stage and Screen, which is the subject of Chad's program today. Chad has directed over 100 productions, probably all of them, most of them, 99.9% of them, new work across the country, and he's produced nearly 300 different productions of theater. In fact, he's one of those people with endless amounts of energy. As far as I can tell, he doesn't eat and he never sleeps because he's addicted to candy. In addition to his more than full-time job with Constellation, Chad owns a candy store in the Adirondacks, and he also manufactures space candy. And he has a thing for magic, and he's produced and directed magic shows nationwide. Chad is a native of Maryland and a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh. Now, I'm one of the founding board members of Constellation Stage and Screen, and there are actually 4 other members of our club who are currently on the board with me: Tracy Jovanovich, Lori Garrity, Lynn Schwartzberg, and newly elected Sue Scambolari. I'm wondering how many people here today have attended a Constellation production over the last, good Lord, 2 years. Wow, guys, that's amazing. How about the season kickoff last spring when Chad announced the season? Okay. How about the strategic plan announcement a couple of weeks ago? Okay. Oh, I was there. Yeah, there. Okay, so particularly given all of that interest in Constellation and theater, we're going to try something different for Chad's talk today. You notice he's already been talking back to me. I have prepared about a dozen questions, printed them out, and placed them in this envelope, which is sealed. Chad does not know the contents of this envelope. Chad, through magic, is probably going to try to answer the questions one by one. Chad, I give you the podium and here's the envelope.
I do have a stage voice. I can just do it if we need it. Yeah, into Zoom. Oh, hi Zoom. We've got some friends. Hi Jim Mahady. I said I would give the season announcement. I'll talk about the season. It'll be great. My job is to get people to come to see the shows. And then Sally said, no, that's not what you're doing. And I said, well, I sure would like to, especially considering you're on the board and you judge me partially based on how many people come to the shows. And she said, this audience does not, they already know what the shows are. And I said, well, maybe I'll just plug it a little bit in the beginning and then we can do whatever you want. She said, no, you've got to be more interesting than that. They probably already have their ticket. So I promised I wouldn't talk about the season because Sally is right. I'm sure all of you already have your tickets to Wipeout that is now running. Yeah, it just happens to be there on that slide. Wipeout's running now. I'm sure none of you would want to miss out on a show about 3 70-year-old women learning to surf, especially not one that's about lifelong learning and lifelong friendship, where age is just a vibe, running until September 29th. So don't worry, I'm not going to talk about the season throughout this. I'm only going to answer these questions. And I have to tell you, I've given a lot of these speeches. This is the most terrifying thing I think I've ever been a part of. So let's see. We'll start. Okay, one at a time. First one from Sally. Are you single? Oh, geez, Sally, now's not the time, but okay. Are these in any order? No. Okay, we'll start with how many facilities does Constellation currently manage? Why are all those spaces necessary? Okay, so Constellation, in case you don't know the background of a Constellation, was 3 organizations that merged, Bloomington Playwrights Project, Cardinal Stage, and Pegasus Institute. And so through that, we actually inherited a lot of buildings. The old BPP building, which is on 107 West 9th Street. It's a blue building called Constellation Playhouse. That's a 85-seat black box theater. It allows us to do a lot of really cool small scale shows in there. Pegasus Institute had a film studio. So we have our capacity to shoot some small films in there. It's also an education facility. We have all of our year-round education programs. The majority of them happen in that building. But then during the time of this merger, the Waldron had an unknown future. And it was clear that someone needed to step up and steward that building to a future of success. And so Constellation really spent probably about a year vetting it, making sure that we had a clear plan to be able to maintain and grow that building. And we've since done a $1.5 million renovation to what it looks like in that building now, which is very, if you haven't been in there, please come in. It is gorgeous. But the building was erected in around 1920. And so the architecture and the design inside is reflected by the architecture and the time period outside. And in that space, we have our Fire Bay Theater, which is about a 60-seat black box theater. Upstairs, we have a 150-seat Weikart Auditorium. And we also have 4 art galleries that we manage through all of it. So we manage not only our spaces for theater, we manage our spaces for film and education, and we also are steward of the building for the visual arts, as well as a countless number of renters in our space. I think we have over 50 renters already throughout this year. So there's a significant responsibility beyond just a theater company. We are truly an arts center. One down, nailed it. What are you doing tonight? Geez, Sally. Now that You know, oh, actually, you know, speaking of the Waldron Art Center, you're going to regret all of this. I know, she already is. Happening in the Waldron Art, you know what's next to the Waldron Art Center? It's a little show called The True Story of the Three Little Pigs. I couldn't not mention it because it's the next thing up. In the Waldron, we have a whole series of children's shows. This one is the actual true story behind what happened with the three pigs. It's from the wolf's perspective. It's a fantastic storybook. This is a musical. And in truth, the wolf in the court of law in Pennsylvania is arguing that he never huffed, he never puffed, he never blew any houses down, or at least not on purpose. He just had to sneeze. And so we are getting to hear his case, and the audience made up of kids wearing pig's ears will get to actually vote on his innocence or guilt. That's happening in October, but we don't need to talk about the season, so it's fine. Apparently, how does Constellation define new work? Why is there a focus on producing new work at Constellation? I love that question. So new work, Constellation. So I've spent the majority of my career developing new plays and musicals. It is extremely important, especially in an art form that, let's be honest, you know the shows you know, and it's an art form that continues to be, for lack of a better word, recycled, right? You go to the shows, you know Christmas Carol's playing every year, so you go to that. Well, how does the next Hamilton get started? How do you create the next great work that will impact communities around the country? Well, it takes theaters like Constellation to commit to that, to be able to make stuff that not only has an impact here, but also beyond our community. And we just actually launched something, what we call the New Play Map, where we've tracked every play that Constellation has, every Constellation original, as we call it, that has moved on from here to other communities. And I'm doing this in the curtain speech now if you see a show called Wipeout running till September 29th. But I might as well ask this question since Sally did. How many plays do you think Constellation has produced that have had future productions across the globe? Would you say it's, let's say, A, 11, B, 19, or C, 23? Or just to screw with you, I'll throw in another one, D, none of the above, just in case you want some psychological damage. A, 11, who thinks 11? Who's not invested? B, 19. Raise your hand if it's B, 19. C, 23. The optimist, I love it. D, none of the above, who thinks I'm screwing with you? Great, this table understands me. It's not 11, 19, or 23. It's 1,600. 1,600 productions of plays have started in Bloomington with our company and gone on. And that's important because it means it's our way of having our community impact other communities. And that has now happened in all 50 states and 15 countries, as far as South Korea, India, Italy, Australia, Japan, and many more. So just from that standpoint, new works in our community means a lot. But it's also, what I love about it is, if you ever, I love Netflix and Netflix originals. I love finding out what's new, the story that I've never seen before, right? And when you're here and Constellation seeing a new work like Wipeout, our playwright's in the audience with you. And it matters whether you laugh or whether you cry or whether you've dozed off or whether you're extremely active. Because we're making changes based on your reactions, and your reactions impact the rest of the globe that gets to see these shows. So that to me is just infinitely more exciting and artistically more fulfilling to be a part of. So we get Constellation as the best of both worlds. You get those new works, but you also get those shows that you know and love. And so it really, from an artistic and community standpoint, it's so much more fun. Question 2 down, 50 more to go. Well, I'll do this quick. Apparently Constellation is involved with baseball. What are the Ike and Julie Arnold playoffs? I'm glad you asked. The Ike and Julie Arnold playoffs are the biggest fundraiser of the year for Constellation. We're about to kick it off now. It's not too late to be a part of it. This goes back 23 years now. We've been running this fundraiser where we get about 100 people together and we put on plays that we write in 24 hours. So on Friday night, there's a kickoff. And we get a surprise theme, prop, and line of dialogue that no one has ever heard of before. And actually this year, 11 playwrights will have to write a play overnight for a cast of actors and a director and some team managers. And they then, the next morning from 7 a.m. until about 2 in the afternoon, rehearse, memorize, and then we film it. And then we have a screening later on. So it's really 24 hours to put on a whole play. And we do it as a walkathon fundraiser. And I know there's some people in this room who are participating. So I'm sure all of you are going to be asked to support a team, right? Multiple teams. Tracy, who's also on our board, for sure, is going to do that. But I just want you to know, if you want to support a winning team, it's mine. So consider, if anyone asks you, what is Chad's team doing? And you can always support my team. Just think about that. Oh gosh, tell us your life story from birth to the present day. Okay, it was a dark and stormy night. My mom was in a lot of pain. No. I'm just trying to think of what's going to make it so that you can't invite anyone back again, Sally. So I'm actually, the fun facts of me, I'm a triplet. So there's 3 of me. We were fun valedictorian triplets back in Maryland. And then in an effort to be different, I went to University of Pittsburgh. My brother and sister went to Lehigh. We were raised on sports. And so I was definitely the disappointment in the family who said, I'm going to go off and do the arts. Because one day I happened to be, I got into to magic, as Sally mentioned, in an early age. And so that was my gateway into theater. And then around in high school, I got cut from the freshman basketball team, which is devastating for someone my height. And I really that changed my whole trajectory. And I was around that time in a social studies class with someone, and I had to give a class presentation with someone I'd never met before. And so we were working on whatever the social studies presentation was, and he's like, "Oh, Chad, you're really energetic. You should try out for the school play." And I was like, "No, absolutely not." And so I didn't. But what happened was, when the school play happened, which I didn't know we even had a theater department, one of the kids in the play was also in the band. Well, the band had a competition that then rained out. And then that competition got moved to a day that conflicted with the show. And so all of a sudden they needed to fill the role. And so I said, I got asked, do you want to audition for it? And I said, absolutely not. And then the next day, someone asked, would you like to audition for it? I said, absolutely not. Then the next day, I was walking down the hall, and Amanda Lewis, who would later be my prom date, said, would you like to audition for it? I said, I sure would. And so I auditioned for it, and I was so amazing. I got the part because no one else showed up. And the next year, I was president of the drama club. So I got bit by it really quickly, and it comes down to the roots in magic. I always loved to perform, but I just never knew this part of storytelling. And then I told my parents I want to go to school and I want to major in theater. And they said, well, you can dual major in theater and business. And I said, okay. And honestly, you know, we consider that in theater, it's a fallback. And absolutely not. That was one of the best decisions I ever could have made. Thanks to my very supportive parents, I was able to follow both parts of my brain and be able to understand not only how to produce theater, how to actually, direct theater and be an artist, but also how to produce it, how to run a company, which is so much more than what you expect when you get into theater. And so that's it. I fell my way into theater. I ended up in, at one point in time, I moved 9 times in 15 months, going from theater to theater, and then ended up, fortunately, at Westport Country Playhouse, where I met Rosie and Art, where'd Rosie? Did I bore her already? Rosie. Oh, hi. We met in Westport, Connecticut, where I had the fortune of being able to work with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, which is why we also have the Woodward-Newman Award as part of our season, which I'll get to if I ever get to announce another show. Yeah. So that's I think most of the life story, and then essentially I was in Connecticut, and they did a national search at BPP for this role, and I came out, interviewed on this campus, got the job, and I signed a 3-year contract because I knew that this was just a stepping stone, and that was 15 years ago. Because I fell in love immediately. 3 days in, I told all of my family and all my friends, I said, this is a better life than I've ever had in all of the communities I've lived in. So it really was a game changer for me, and I've called it home ever since. And then, oh gosh, I don't even know what other questions we're going to have along the way. But along those ways, to complete the life story, I also do magic, and then I open a candy store. The end. Yeah. Okay, what are your biggest challenges as an artistic director, and what does an artistic director do? Let's try to tackle those. I think so. Number one, if you like something or don't like something, it's generally my fault. Artistic director, at the core picks what is the season of art that we're going to do. Also hires the staff. Every single show has a lot more folks in it than you would think. Right. We oftentimes see the shows on stage. You know what? Since we're talking about the shows on stage, I should point out one of the shows you'll see on stage is Wizard of Oz this holiday season. You don't want to miss it. You guys know the Wizard of Oz. Just imagine there's a lot of flying. There's a lot of it's on epic proportions at the Buzzkirk Chumley Theater this holiday season. There's no place like home. Okay, back to the show. So a show like Wizard of Oz. It's a given what that show is, what the script is, but you don't think about all the details about what you see on stage. Sure, there's light, so you light the performers on stage, but every single light that's hanging is pointed in a particular position that the lighting designer selects. What kind of light is hanging is designed. When they go on, how long it takes for them to fade on and off, what color they are, what style of light. Then we go to the set, how it moves, how you tell the story. Every single thing in art and in theater is a choice. And it takes a lot of folks to come together to collaborate to make those choices sing as a full show. And so I think about that as far as from a directing standpoint. My job is to bring all of that together so that what you see on stage is cohesive and what you see on stage is suitable for the community. But beyond that, it is also about community engagement. There's so much more that we go beyond just producing entertainment, right? It is everything from our education program and how we interact with the schools. We're working on a program that's going to bring public art into downtown around this show. So it's about orchestrating all of that. And then there's, of course, all the other non-Constellation show things like rentals, and anything that is extended learning with these shows. So I think that's to get to a quicker version of that. That's the answer to that. What am I most excited about in the coming season? What are the odds that would come up right now? Misery, that's opening in January 31st. I love this because we're Constellation stage and screen, and this is something that was screened that is now turned into something on the stage. We all know Stephen King's Misery. It is a wonderfully horrific story, but to bring this to life on stage is actually one of the things I love about theater. Because if you know the film, you know it's a very powerful, intense film. But what theater has that film doesn't is an intimacy, a closeness that you'll have to what's happening on stage. The danger is much more real. The theatricality is much more. Lynn, you're already like, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, no spoilers. But it doesn't go well. So I'm really excited for the challenge of how we tell this story that is very filmic. In a way that brings more to that story and intensity. And if you saw Death Trap, which was a big hit for us in the past, we have the one of the actors coming back to play Paul Sheldon in that show. How does Constellation support a $2 million annual budget? And how much of that budget comes from ticket sales? So the quick answer of that is about 40% is from ticket sales. So that means we have to raise 60% of our budget from other sources. And it takes a lot. I don't think anything is a surprise to you when I say that things like, oh, the pandemic made it harder, lumber costs more, labor costs more. It takes a lot to operate something of this scale. Now, I want to be clear about something. One of the reasons that Constellation made the merger in the first place was very carefully analyzing. It took us 2 years to vet, is this the right decision? Can we help serve our community better together? And in doing so, creating a larger budget to be able to handle that. And it was a resounding yes. Looking back on it, would we make the same decision 1,000,000 times over? Absolutely. But the challenge is there is a larger mouth to feed. And how do we find those resources so we can do things like Maple and Vine that's opening later in the season? It's a real challenge, and we get it from grants, we get it from individual giving, and we have corporate support to be able to make those ends meet. And the biggest challenge, the biggest concern I have is making sure that what we do is sustainable, right? As we made this big leap, the goal is how do we make sure that Constellation is integral within this community, that it is going to be the next 50 years. BPP, before it was a 42-year-old company. Cardinal, 20 years and plus. So we want to make sure 100 years from now, Constellation is here. Post-pandemic, obviously, things have, like I said, been challenging. We are skewing way beyond the national average as far as rebuilding ticket sales and engaging our audience, partially because of the merger and the excitement of renovating the Waldron and the type of shows that we're doing. But there's still so much work to be done to be able to get us past that hump to longevity. So I'm happy to say that we're not going anywhere now, but it's about building our future together. And that's, we'll get into more. I'm sure there's going to be other questions, but that's where I want to go to ensure that something like Polka Dots, the Cool Kid musical, doesn't go anywhere either down the line. Now, oh gosh, I'm not going to talk about the strategic plan, Sally. Jeez. Okay, what is this one? Okay, no, I already did that one. Sally, I should have put them in an envelope. Constellation is a nonprofit organization governed by a board of directors who are volunteers. Personal plug. What does the board do and what do they not do? You want to answer that? Okay. What does the board do and what do they not do? Well, the board brings me to places like this. The boards. So we actually have, how many people are on the board? Do you know, it's at 18 right now? Yeah. So we have representatives from all across the community to help formulate things like Sally helped lead this 5-year strategic plan, or really 3 to 5 year strategic plan of what is the long-term planning. And so it's mostly that and fiscal responsibility, making sure Gabe and I and Aaron, our new development director, are spending money wisely. Also, but a big part of that is simply support audience development, finding ways that we can grow further and further into this community. Yeah, did I miss anything? I think I nailed that question. Oh, you hire and fire me? Any more questions I didn't answer for you? I'll do one more and then we'll take from the audience, perhaps. Anyone except for John Weikart can ask a question. I can feel the air of disappointment from you across the room. How do you go about selecting the shows for a full season and how many people are involved? We have about this past year, 2,300 plays were submitted just for the new works. We have a committee of about 40 readers who help me and Daniela Wheelock, the Associate Artistic Director, sort through all of those plays. And there's so many factors that go into deciding which play to select. For example, we picked something called The King's Wife, which is happening in June. That is our Woodward Newman award-winning play. These, it's not just what do we think is the best play? What's the best play that we also feel like we can tell that story well, that is within the realm of our budget, that is a story that we haven't told. If I did a show about the Civil War last year, probably not going to do a show about the Civil War this year. And then it's about trying to make sure that you get to go on a roller coaster. The number one thing we would want to do is build subscribers so that you come and support the whole season. Right? I want you to take the whole path with me and see everything. So if you were to look over all these amazing shows and go to see all of them, you're going to see an entire year's worth of entertainment. And so between all of our staff that reads the plays, I try to get input from wherever possible. We aim to put together, I guess, just more of a full season, like just to get into more like, I'm not plugging the show, Sally, but this show has a 2-time Grammy nominee writing the music. We've got a Broadway producer behind it. And so this is a unique one where there's actually what we call enhancement funds, because this has a goal of starting here and moving elsewhere. So if we can put more resources into it, make it bigger, we'll bring out other producers to see the show. And hopefully you're the first in the world to see The King's Wife, an incredible new musical about the first 2 wives of Henry VIII, Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn. And actually the one before it, I might as well just point out, this is Polka Dots, the Cool Kids musical, is about Lily Polka Dot, who's the only polka dot who moves into an all squares town, and she's the first to join into an all squares school, and thinks it's hopeless that she'll ever find friends, but a young, shy square boy becomes interested in her unique skin, and they form a unexpected friendship. It is such a sweet and moving musical that's based on the Little Rock Nine. This show has happened before, but we're the first in the world that are developing it into a puppet version that is going to start here. And again, we're going to work on building a tour, and then it's going to get produced all around the country. The exciting news about that is a name you might not have heard of, but John Tartaglia will co-direct. John is famous for being the Tony Award nominee for a little show called Avenue Q, and is currently working with the Jim Henson Company on a show called Fraggle Rock. And he's done another show that you may have heard of called Sesame Street. So the level of talent coming into these shows that I'm not plugging is pretty significant. Let's jump over to questions. I think I'm at that time. Do we have any? Anyone who's not a board member? Yes.
I was really hoping for happy dollars today because I wanted to tell everybody what a great airline experience I had at O'Hare Airport yesterday. And if it hadn't worked out well, I would not be here today. But this is my question. I thought this program was going to be all the questions we wanted to ask you, but we're afraid to ask.
Oh,
So
no.
I'm not afraid to ask you that. I went to the Ted Jones Theater one night and I didn't look, there was a big parking lot there, and I came back at the end of the show and my car was towed. Have you done anything to remedy that situation? I had a nice friend in the box office that helped me to my car and to my money and all that. Turned out okay, but not for a while.
I'm sorry to hear that experience. And actually, one of my first experiences in Bloomington was that with a gentleman named Keith Michael, who same thing this was my first show in Bloomington. His car was towed, and I felt horrible, and I drove him to the towing company, and in that car, I asked him, I said, "Hey, so thanks for coming to the show. Do you like theater?" And I didn't know who he was. Keith ran the IU theater department for decades. And so then he later joined our board, but that's how I got to know him. And so I wish I could say that experience was unique, but it is, I'm assuming Big Red is where your car was parked. Yeah. Yeah. No, live your life. But this, what we can do and what we will do is make sure in our pre-show emails to point out where those parking is, because Big Red is Big Red is big parking, and unfortunately, they do too. But thank you for pointing that out, and I apologize for that. Happy to. I love the hard-hitting questions.
So one of the goals is getting access to everybody, not only in Bloomington, but in the region. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So one of the things we just announced is our Open Stages program. And that is, so I guess the best way to put it is to charge market rate for the rental of our spaces would be thousands and thousands of dollars. It just costs a lot to run the building, to run the lights, and to be able to offer the production support that we do. And a lot of these theater companies that are startups, and we want to build the next theater company and support more art than just ours. So we've announced in partnership with the city that we're actually subsidizing the majority of those. If we were previously basically saying, here's market rate, we're going to charge half. And now we're charging half of that. So if you want to rent any of our spaces for any type of art that's for public consumption, you simply fill out a grant, and instead of $3,000, it'll be $300. It is really as affordable as humanly possible, and we offer a lot of support to continue that on, to help usher these new companies along. Beyond that, we want to make sure that our programming is accessible for anyone to see, no matter the means. So we offer what's called the Community Access Tickets Fund, which is supported also by a fellow Rotarian, where no questions asked. You can simply just go to our site and request a free ticket to any show. And we're going to give out, we already have given out hundreds. Jessica has challenged us to give out thousands in the next couple years. And beyond that, we have Pay What You Will Thursdays. You literally come on Thursday nights and pay whatever you want. Simple as that. And that is actually our most successful nights. It's the time people come. You can pay $5 and see these shows that could literally be, $100 plus anywhere else. We just had a show, The Life and Slimes of Mark Summers, that started here, that was off Broadway and was up to $250 a ticket. But it was $25 here. It was the same show. You were just a little closer to Mark. So it really is, we want to make sure there's no barrier to be able to see any of this.
My name is Claire Kest, and I moved here from Connecticut 3 years ago. And so it took me 2 years to find Constellation, but since then I've seen several shows, very high quality.
Oh, thank you.
And so I'm very impressed, and I've taken part in some of the classes as well. And my question is, so it's Constellation Stage and Screen. So I haven't heard very much about the screen part. So can you talk about
Sure,
that?
absolutely. So we offer film classes, and then the screen part is something that we're continuing to develop. The most exciting thing, so we're going to do something this spring called Project Constellation, where we have commissioned a screenwriter, a professional screenwriter who has written a film that is specifically for Bloomington North and South students to get behind the scenes experience and in front of the camera experience. That we will film at literally at a top tier level that can then be submitted to film festivals around the country before having a BCT screening here first. So we're going to start, what we're learning as a film production company, A, it's very expensive, and B, it's something that we need to grow into. But that's the first project that we're really taking on, is that one. And I guess since we're wrapping up time, I'm seeing Tracy move. I think the thing I want to land on is in 4 days will be my 15-year anniversary here. Thank you. I asked for that applause. No, so really it occurred to me last night as I was thinking about it, I've spent a third of my life here now, more than that. And the entirety of my adult career has been one way or another here in Bloomington. No matter where I've gone to direct, I've always found my way back to what I consider home. And the thing that I've learned most in this job, when this is coming to me after reading Sally's What Does an Artistic Director Do? It's you go to places like University of Pittsburgh and you learn how to direct. And you say, okay, you know what? I just want to be the best at my art. I'm going to change the world with what I create. And that's great. I love directing. I've done it a lot, and I hope to continue to do that. But you learn that that's the given part of your job as an artistic director. That's the thing. Of course, I'm going to put on shows, but the thing that matters the most, and what Bloomington has taught me, is that my job is to make the place where I live a better place to live. And so to me, it's been such a big turnaround in my life here to figure out what is it that we do? How do we make sure that we're the company that does more than just the shows? And I think Aaron and I were talking earlier about the reasons for that support. And to me, there's quality of life. Yeah, we're gonna put on shows that I hope maybe you're having a down day and this entertains you, or it moves you, or it makes you think about something in a different way, or it was just a great date night, something to do. But we're also an economic driver. We drive hundreds of thousands of dollars of business in the downtown area, because when you go to a show, you don't just go to the show, you make a night of it. That's what live art does. It's something that you can spend the entire evening out, go to a restaurant, go shopping, embrace your downtown area. But my favorite thing is really pride in community, right? There are things in Bloomington, like I point to Wonder Lab. I love that Wonder Lab is here. I don't have any kids, but I love science, and I love that it's here, and I love that it's not in other communities. And so there's this thing that I just love about Constellation, and I hope that more and more people will see. It's just, man, aren't we fortunate to have things like this in a city like ours? And so, yeah, I talk about the season that I hope that you'll go see. But really what I hope that you'll do is support the vision of what Constellation Stage and Screen is and will be in our community. And that is something that we can all be proud about. So thank you.
Thank you, Chad. That was a great job not introducing the season. All right, and I have a update. We do have an additional birthday tomorrow, Vivian. I don't know why it didn't come up in the report, but I will find out. But happy birthday tomorrow. And on that, I want to give acknowledgements to all the people who have helped put this production on today. So our executive assistant, Natalie Blaze, thank you. Ruth Boschkoff, great job greeting. Winston Schindel, nice job introducing. Zoom host, Joy, thank you for that. I know it's tough as you're in the hospital with your sister. Bill Brown, great reflection, very inspiring. And Greer, thank you for the reporting. Michael Shermis, great to have you back as the camera and mic operator. And of course, Tyler, you always do a fantastic job. Our next meeting will be on the 17th in the Frangipana room, and our speaker will be Ray Wise on African American Arts Institute and what a difference the arts make. And with that, if you could put up the four-way test and everybody stand. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all? And fifth, fun.